So today we're interviewing Luca Benini. And Luca, I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about your work and maybe the relationship to Boole's work.
Yeah, that's a pleasure. So I work as a professor in a University of Bologna in the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. Mostly I'm working in the area of digital integrated circuits and systems. And in my line of job, we have everyday dealings with Boole's legacy. Basically, we are working with digital circuits that are working with zeros and ones, and Boolean algebra is the root of what we do from the theoretical viewpoint, and also it's not only a remote theoretical link, but it's quite a live legacy, quite a live link, and it shows itself in a lot of things that we are doing, in the sense of optimizing digital logic for real physical implementation, for chip manufacturing and chip design. And we always have to go and reconsider what are the fundamental underpinnings of the Boolean theory and apply them onto the reality of the physical transistors that we are using for implementing Boolean circuits. For me, what is really astonishing is the capability of building a very powerful and rich theory from a couple of very basic theorems and theoretical intuitions. So what we do in engineering is really try to replicate that. So creating a small set of simple and well understood building blocks and rules for assembling them. And using these simple, well-defined building blocks and rules, we can create larger and larger systems. Now, the key point is simple and well-defined. And I think this is where the quantum leap by George Boole is. He found a way to formulate logic and mathematics using the simplest number system, the simplest representations. Zeros and ones are even much simpler than the numerical bases we use in everyday's work and in our brains, and I think we are taught in our brains to use, and I think this is really wonderful, because this is what made this basic theoretical work so important in practice. It's a building with very, very simple elements and being able to construct on them. So it's a constructive theory based on very simple elements, and I think this is really wonderful and really nice and elegant as well. I believe that the fundamentals of Boolean algebra can be taught to elementary school children. There is no problem with that, because it's so simple. Okay, and this is really something useful, because it's an easier way to reason about things and to have logical thinking really inscribed into the mind of young people even before they get to university. So in my personal case, in my personal experience, I got taught Boolean algebra in high school, and was kind of a unusual path in high school, because usually in a scientific high school you get taught real analysis, real valued analysis, calculus, and I was lucky that my teacher at that time decided to make this parenthesis on Boolean algebra, and even though I didn't have any in-depth mathematical culture, I grasped the concept immediately, and still remember how appealing was to being able to construct a complicated reasoning without knowing complex theorems, without having to do a lot of self-training exercises like you have to do in calculus. So I believe that through elementary school and high school, Boolean algebra, the basics of Boolean algebra can be taught. I also think that it's also important that this is very well understood in the university, and but in my view, it should be really fundamental knowledge, not only taught in engineering schools or mathematical schools, because it's simple, clean, and really useful in everyday life. It teaches you a very simple and consistent way of thinking. Sometimes research and development goes in waves, and waves of things that are fashionable and things that are unfashionable, and so I really hope that I have kind of the feeling after let's say the 90s and the early 80s and 90s, where most of the people working in hardware design, verification, and so on had a very strong training in Boolean algebra and how to describe logic circuits using Boolean algebra and so on. Right now, due to the complexity of the systems that you have to design as a digital designer, as a system-on-chip designer, this part of the fundamental training is being given less and less emphasis, and you tend to deal with larger and larger problems and systems and raising the abstraction level and so on. And at the end, you end up, and I see it in my PhD students coming up, you end up with the students that, maybe can understand how a multiprocessor works, but they have a lack of fundamental understanding of what are the foundations, the underpinning of why a microprocessor works and so on. So I think that there is a risk that because of complexity, we move too fast to higher abstraction levels that are not so strongly based on theory, and they are, somehow ad hoc formulations that people patch together to deal with the complexity. And then at the end, you are skating on very thin ice, because if you don't have a strong theoretical background, things break down, and then you spend your time patching things instead of building up from solid ground. And so I think I would like to emphasize that there is a risk to consider Boole's work and his legacy something obsolete or something interesting for the sake of historical representation, while I think it's really still very important, very relevant.
Thank you very much.